Hello and welcome to the Malika Writes channel. My name is Malika Writes, and today I'm going to be talking about books that I think display the feminine and masculine journey very well. I think these are books that accurately sort of describe the feminine journey that I've covered in my previous videos. Um, Sort of deciphering masculinity with Aragorn, Boromir, and Faramir, and exploring femininity with Galadriel. So these are just books that I think you can read in order to really kind of familiarize yourself with the masculine and feminine journey. So the first book is very obviously The Lord of the Rings, because I think um, obviously these books are great books. These are phenomenal books. Tolkien was a phenomenal writer. So, The Fellowship of the Rings by um, J.R.R. Tolkien, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, epic books for you to read. The Silmarillion is a must read, I think, in order to really understand the masculine and feminine journey. You have to have read those books because Tolkien was a master when it comes to looking at these two very distinct journeys. Tolkien was very good at taking myths from different cultures and from different places in order to really refine his world building and to refine his story. So I think having his books in your list is going to it's just going to be a service to you. And I think for writers, even for readers who are just wanting to familiarize themselves with the feminine and masculine journey, Tolkien is the place to go to. So the second person I would recommend is obviously C.S. Lewis. I mean, I love C.S. Lewis, and I think when it comes to his portrayal of Susan, I think that is a great example of the feminine journey. I think Lucy is a great one, but Susan in particular, because she sort of shows what happens when the feminine journey isn't really um, it doesn't go all the way quite well. I think when Susan sort of leaves Narnia and she's more concerned with the outward display of femininity, I think that's important for people to see because there is an element of, femininity that becomes quite superficial. I think um that is very indicative of the power struggle that women often go through in stories. And just to sort of reiterate that for those who haven't watched my femininity video, where I sort of used the character of Galadriel to look at femininity, the power struggle I'm talking about is one that we've seen in many myths. We've seen it in the myth of Psyche and Eros. We've seen it in the Bible with Eve and how she ate the fruit. So we have this power struggle where women tend to go for the power, they tend to go for the places of authority before they have sort of gained the wisdom. There, this is not really a discussion of whether women are able, it's more of a discussion of are you best suited for that position, and the journey that the woman sort of takes in myths is to almost go through the experience and prepare herself for a position of leadership, and usually that appropriate place of leadership is one where she's sort of giving out wisdom. It tends to be the position of the sage where she's sort of giving out wisdom. She's helping the future generation sort of learn and passing on this wisdom, as we see Galadriel as the Lady of Lothlorien, sort of passing on this wisdom, giving advice. Her home becomes a haven, that sort of thing. So I think C.S. Lewis does this very well. Tolkien obviously does it very well. The third book I want to recommend is Scatterheart by Lili Wilkinson. I personally really loved this book. I think it's one of those really good books where the feminine journey is explained so well. It's a heart-wrenching story, and it's also a story where we see a girl go from a place of immaturity. We see all the mistakes that, girls make in their youth, but we see her learn from it. We see how she sort of goes from this place of immaturity to becoming a well-rounded person, to becoming a very empathetic person. And I think that story is a very good one for those who for girls especially, but I think men or boys will do very well to read this as well, because I think it's very different from the masculine tale. It's very different from the sort of Star Wars Luke's tale, how he sort of runs away from responsibility at first and has to take on responsibility in order to save the universe. So I think that Scatterheart is a great book to read for those who want to really explore the feminine journey. I think the Ranger's Apprentice series by John Flanagan is brilliant for looking at the male storyline, for looking at the male myth. I think this series really, it's the standard mythological story. It's about, the boy who's sort of down on his luck, and a fate arranges for him to come under a mentor and take him off into the world where he's able to improve his skill but also learn more about the world. And there is a sort of um, training that goes on. We get to see that intimate bond, that brotherhood, that this relationship between the mentee and the mentor. I think that's very vital in boys' sort of growth. And The Ranger's Apprentice is a brilliant series because it's all about how the main character goes from being just an orphan, he goes from being an orphan that no one knows about and becomes a ranger. So it's a very standard sort of mythological story. Now, this next one is quite different because it's a collection of tales, and this is 1001 Nights. And I think this particular collection of tales is great for both. It's just like the Tolkien and C.S. Lewis series is great for both the feminine and masculine um, tales. I think the 1001 Nights is great for both as well, because the stories are narrated by a woman who is trying to sort of save her life, who's trying to save her life. The king who has married her has a habit of killing his wives, and she is trying to use storytelling to save her life. So when we look at the feminine journey, the whole essence is that women don't use their sort of physical strength. That's more of a masculine journey. Women tend to use their heads. It's about, just like the feminine journey is about obtaining wisdom. So your brain is the facility that you're going to use most of the time. Whereas with the masculine journey, it's not just the development of wisdom, but it's more about the strength, the sacrifice, using that God given strength, using that ability, that biological advantage to help other people. So for women, as we see, she's using her wit in order to save her life and to make sure that this king doesn't kill any more people, because she volunteers to marry him knowing very well that she could die the next morning. So, and the tales obviously follow the tales that she's telling are very intriguing, so the story is going to be pleasurable for you to read. And a lot of them feature the classic masculine journey, sort of going out into the world and exploring tale. So I think this is going to be a great one for people who want to explore the feminine and masculine. I think you should pay attention to how she tells the stories, how the difference between the way men and women solve problems, because that's where you're going to see the different abilities of both genders, where you're going to see the differences between the masculine and feminine myth. And I think lastly, the two I really want to recommend are books that are non-fiction, but they really explore the feminine and masculine myth. So the first one I want to recommend is He, the revised edition by Robert A. Johnson, and the second one is called She, the revised edition by Robert A. Johnson. And he really explores the difference between the psyche of men and women, but he does it through a sort of mythological lens, and I think that would be very um, good for people to read. I think if you want to not just look at the feminine and masculine myths from a fictional perspective, I think reading these books will really help you and really fine tune your thinking and really fine tune the way that you look at different stories so that you're able to really see the differences. Because the thing is, the differences in, especially in storytelling between men and women, aren't that different. We're all capable of valor, and we're all capable of kindness and empathy and all that stuff, but the expression is different. That's where the difference is the way that we carry it out. And I think reading these, especially reading She and He by Robert A. Johnson, I think this will give you the ability to see this in stories, and it will also help you with writing stories, because I think taking the masculine myth and just sort of superimposing it onto a female character is only going to end badly. It's not really going to have the same impact as if you do it well. So I think the example of the, I don't want to, do a film review, but I think if we look at the difference between the live adaptation of Mulan and the first, sort of the drawn animation of Mulan, we see the difference between the masculine and feminine myth and how it works. In the live adaptation, what we see is a masculine myth superimposed onto a female character, and it doesn't work. But in the drawn adaptation of Mulan, what we see is the feminine myth, and that's what makes it work. We see Mulan using what she has, uh, you know, what she has given, well, not given to her, but we see her grow. We see that journey, and even when she, is able to train with the soldiers, he's still using her intelligence more than her actual physical strength. But in the live adaptation, what we have is Mulan just being able to beat thousands of soldiers without breaking a sweat. And that's typically a very masculine thing, and it doesn't work. There's something fraudulent about it because we know it's not true, and we're not really able to suspend disbelief. So that's just an example that I think most people can remember, about when the myths are not allocated properly, when we superimpose the feminine myth onto men, or when we superimpose the masculine myth onto women, it doesn't work. And I think reading these books is going to give you a framework to work with if you're writing, and also just something to enjoy if you're just a reader. So thank you very much for listening to this podcast style video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you were able to learn something valuable. I'm going to leave all the books in the description so that you can go and check them out. Thank you so much for watching the video, for listening to it. Thank you so much for all your support. I've been, trying my very, very best to reply to your comments and to read everything. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for everything, and I hope you have a lovely day.